Hello everyone and welcome back to a couple books. This is books, JK, it's couple. But today we are going to be doing my January wrap up and my February TBR. The reason I'm combining these videos is that I did not get through as many books as I thought I was going to get through this month, and next month I'm not going to get through nearly as many as I usually do because it is grad school finals time, meaning that I'm writing a lot of papers and reading a lot of research articles. So unless you guys want me to do reviews on research articles, I think that it'd probably be best if we just stick with the normal books that we typically read on this channel, and I will summarize those. But next month I'll be reading far less than I normally do, and I'm not going to try and aim too high because I don't want to disappoint. So with that all being said, let us get into what I read this month. I think I read like 5 fantasy books and 5 lit RPG books. So with that, let's get started with the fantasy books. This month I read 3 Genevieve Cogman books in the Invisible Library series. I read The Mortal Word, which will be up here right here. I read The Dark Archive and The Secret Chapter, and I enjoyed all 3 of them. They were all fantastic. Because it's like in the series and these are later books in the series, I don't want to get too specific for the sake of spoilers, so I'm just going to give you guys a quick, brief plot overview. For The Mortal Word, which is right here, this is a murder mystery. It's very interesting. Kai, Irene, and Vale are called on the site of a murder plot that is developing because someone very important has been murdered. And this person is extremely important in the dragon hierarchy. They are also a key player in some big political moves that are happening currently in the Invisible Library universe. And he's kind of like a fundamental player involved, and his death is like a serious blow to a lot of amazing political things that are happening in this world. And they're basically called on site of this diplomacy meeting in order to figure out who at the diplomacy meeting was the killer of this really high-ranking dragon member. It is a serious book in the sense that it has serious implications throughout the rest of the Invisible Library universe. It has a lot of great characters. Of course, I love our main characters. We are introduced to different characters who have a lot of different characteristics and thoughts and motivations behind them. There's just like a lot of interesting people overall in this one. It built up the world quite a bit, and it added a lot of future implications while also to some degree kind of being a bottle episode in the sense of like, it's like, here's a murder plot, someone got murdered here, solve the case guys, go gang. But at the same time, the implications of their results are going to be far reaching beyond just this book. So it was a really fun book. I enjoyed it. It was probably one of my favorite ones. I also have a soft spot for mysteries or murder mysteries, so was a huge fan. The next one in the series I read was The Secret Chapter by Cogman. This was a heist book, which I also have a soft spot for. It's really hard to do a heist well. This one did it very well. I really enjoyed it. Once again, Irene and Kai, they're called off to go fetch a book by the library, and they are sent to this one person who sends them on a heist, and they have to go through this heist with a whole bunch of other characters that we meet along the way. They have to go find something and steal it in order to receive the book that they're looking for. Overall, this book seemed like a really like self-contained story, but the last few pages in this book were kind of insane and had wilder implications. I overall thought that the new characters we met were really fun. I look forward to seeing them again. Hopefully they reappear at some point in the future. I also enjoyed the heist element. It's keeping the series fresh because it can get kind of repetitive. I could see that. I could feel it happening potentially, but Cogman does a great job. She doesn't really let it get stale. Every book is very different and it has a different theme kind of going throughout it, and we continue to see that. This is going to be obviously one of my favorites just because I love murder mysteries. I love heists. Like, these are all soft spots Cogman is like hitting on. So I have very few complaints in terms of this one, and I really overall thought it was a stronger one in the entire series as a whole. And then my last one I read was The Dark Archive by Cogman. This is the most recently published one. This one I had a few more issues with. I did not enjoy it nearly as much as the other 2 I read this month, mostly because there were a lot of mysterious elements going on. Basically in this one, Irene and Kai are being assaulted by some unknown person's unknown. We don't know who they are. We don't know what they're about. We just know someone is out there to get at Vale, Kai, and Irene, and we don't know what the reasoning is behind that. And through their journey, they have to figure out who's trying to kill them, and then they need to stop them from trying to kill them. And I enjoyed that part of it. Like, I enjoyed the whole, like, who's coming back part to come, who is your enemy and who's trying to come find you. This one saw a lot of characters from past books return, which was kind of nice to see previous characters that we've learned and like kind of grown attached to come back. That part was really fun. Overall, my main issues with it were some of the plotting choices that she chose to do. You'll know what I'm talking about. To remain spoiler free, I can't say too much. Overall, writing is still fantastic. Still love the world, still love the series. I'm not so in love with the main story in this book because every book's kind of got its own like main story within it. Not so stoked with this one. I thought that there were many gaps and many kind of tropes that were used that I'm not a huge fan of, and therefore was not a huge love with it. Of course, me saying this, I still absolutely love this book, and I'm so excited for book 8. This is the most recently published one, so we don't have book 8 yet on the shelves, and I'm looking forward to it immensely. The next 2 books we read are both sequels, so because of that, I'm sorry guys, it's kind of hard to do without spoilers, but we're going to do our best to be spoiler free here. So nonetheless, let's get started. I read the second book after The Last Smile in Sunder City by Luke Arnold. This is, what's it called? I actually don't know what the name of the series is, people. I think it's like the Fetch Phillip Archives. But anyways, this is the second book, Dead Man in a Ditch. This, basically, we are still following the main character, Fetch Phillips. If you guys are curious about this world and you guys haven't heard about the first book, in the simplest terms possible, basically we are in a world that was kind of on the edge of an industrial revolution, and it was filled with magical creatures, fae, elves, trolls, dragons, anything you can think of. There were a lot of magical creatures in there. There were also humans. They kind of semi-coexisted. They kind of also hated each other, but everyone was like aware of each other. It wasn't like secret vampires or anything like that. Like everyone was fully aware of what you were and what you weren't. And like 6 years ago or something like that, all the magic in the world disappeared for reasons that are unknown. At least you don't know. I know. So sorry. But yeah, so magic disappeared. We don't know why it disappeared or how it disappeared, but it's gone. And when that happened, a lot of the industries and a lot of the people that fill this country and fill the land and fill this universe all collapsed and died. The magical people who didn't die continued to live on, but they're severely handicapped and or dying. Basically, the previous magic folk in this world are all kind of in some stage of suffering. In addition to that, a lot of the industry and companies and businesses that were leading them into the Industrial Revolution all also collapsed because almost all their technology was imbued with magic to some degree, and when magic disappeared, so did their ability to continue down this trajectory of progress. So now we're in this world, it's kind of falling apart, it's kind of all a mess. Fetch Phillips, who is our main character, is a human, and he basically is a Dresden Files character. He's basically Harry Dresden in this world, but he aims to basically solve cases for only ex-magic folk. He does not help humans at all. In the first book, he follows his own story, which you'll need to read to find out. Basically, it is a vampire gone missing. In this one, he is called up to a bar by the police because some man at the bar had his, I don't want to say more, he died. He died in mysterious circumstances that kind of seemed like magic. So they call up Fetch Phillips to get him on the case, figure out how this man died by magic when magic doesn't exist. So really enjoyed it. I liked the plotting. There were slow moments in this book, which I can understand in a sequel. My biggest issue with it, which really isn't an issue, it actually is like it speaks to how great of an author Luke Arnold is for just starting out. This world is really dark. And like it gets to me sometimes how dark this world is. Like if you guys read the series, you guys will know what I mean. It's a really dark world. Like there's not a lot of happiness and sunshine and rainbows. I continue to enjoy Fetch Phillips. If I can say enjoy, he's really just like a really depressing dark guy. But I enjoyed the world. I enjoyed the mystery. I thought the plotting was interesting. Some of the choices they made were kind of on the nose, but I really have very little serious world-ending thoughts on this book. Nothing too intense. Overall, solid book. Not going to change my scope. I will be looking forward for the third book, and I'm hoping that we'll continue to see Luke Arnold grow as an author. My next book is going to be also a sequel, The Bloody Rose by Nicholas Eames. This is after The Kings of the Wild. If you guys did not catch, I did an entire review on Kings of the Wild. In this world, basically, we follow these bands. Bands are groups of individuals who go out and they fight monsters. And there's basically two generations. In the first book, Kings of the Wild, we follow this generation of monster killers who kind of are out there to stop the hordes from like killing all the humans. Like there's so many monsters in this world, and they're so deadly and so dangerous to just the settlements and the towns and villages of these people. These bands have to form in order to basically allow humanity to survive and thrive. Now, in this book, we're following the children of that generation, and they now have kind of moved on to a different phase in the monster hunting business, where they're no longer hunting out of the ability to survive, but they're hunting for the sake of entertainment. So in all these big towns and villages, they've constructed these arenas. These arenas are kind of like coliseums, where they send in these bands of people to go and fight these massive, horrific monsters for the sake of entertaining the masses. The bands are willing to do this. They get paid very handsomely to do this, and they're all kind of out there to claim some fame in the arena business, and they call it touring, where they go through a whole bunch of villages and a whole bunch of arenas, and they fight a whole bunch of different monsters. In this book in particular, we're following the children of the first book, and this is to some degree a standalone. Like I would definitely recommend reading the first book first, because there are characters that you meet in here that are like significant characters from the first book. So there's definitely a reason to read the first book. I wouldn't just jump straight into this one. And we follow this girl, and she's a bard. Her name's Tam, I think, and she basically aspires to be a bard, which is basically the person who supervises and watches the band as they go about their adventures, and then the bard will compose songs and sing about them to future taverns and basically help them climb their way to fame. The band in particular, this one, the Bloody Rose Band, is super popular as is. And they are kind of a mixture of the old generation and the current generation, where they do these tours, but they also accept monster contracts to go hunt out these real monsters. So Tam joins the band, and they basically go out on this mysterious monster contract that they don't know what they're going to go fight, or at least we don't know what they're going to go fight, but we know it's going to be deadly. So overall, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was better than the first book. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I actually enjoyed this one more. I thought the characters were more interesting. I enjoyed the situations, the moral dilemmas, the gray situations, the great characters. Like, these characters aren't just all good guys. A lot of them are very great people. Overall, thought the plotting was interesting. It leaned on a lot of the stuff that he set in the foundation in the first book, which I really enjoy when authors do that, where they show that they're building off of a foundation and they're not just throwing in new random elements. So overall, have very little complaints. I think I even gave this book 5 stars. I really enjoyed this book, and I thought it was absolutely fantastic and much better than the first one. Not that the first one's bad. I just enjoyed this one way more. Built up a lot on the flow, built up a lot on the plotting and on the character development, and overall really just improved overall as a writer. Nicholas Eames did. So, highly recommend this one. Now, in terms of my 5 lit RPG books, most of these, if not all of them, have a separate review up on the channel, and it will all be linked down below. So I'm not going to go too much into depth like I did with the previous books. We're just going to kind of fly through them real quick. So, first book is going to be The Crafting of Chess by Kit Falbo. This was a really fun lit RPG book. Basically follows this guy whose real name is Nate. In the game world, he goes by Chess, hence The Crafting of Chess, and he is a hustler in the real life, and he barely makes ends meet living with his grandfather, who's also a hustler, and he finds an opportunity in the virtual reality game in this world where he can join up and start playing on release day and hopefully be able to bring in some real cash from this game world. And he sees an opportunity and he goes for it. Overall, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was one of the better lit RPG books I've read. It's low on the game mechanics, high on the plotting and political intrigue part of the story, but overall had a few complaints. You guys can check out my lit RPG review on this book down in the description box to get my full feelings on it. But yeah, so that was this book. Next, I read Genesis by Peter John. This was another lit RPG book review that I did a full video on, which will be linked down below. This one basically has this guy named Colonel Armpit. He is a former Army colonel, and he is now retired, and he basically goes and basically enters retirement with the mind of time to relax, time to peace out, watch some TV shows, you know, catch up on Netflix, that kind of situation. Unfortunately, he is kidnapped by aliens, and once he's abducted by aliens, he basically enters this very interesting like situation that involve lit RPG elements, military sci-fi, some Tolkien creatures, like fantasy elements in there as well. A lot of different genres that things are taken from and put into this story. I enjoyed it. You guys can check out my review on it, but I had some issues with it, not a ton. Overall, I thought it was a really interesting book. I was enthralled the entire way, and I had very little complaints in terms of the story. For me personally, I did see potential issues for other people who might want to pick up the story. So if you're interested in alien abductions, military sci-fi, sci-fi in general, lit RPG, that kind of stuff, be sure to check out this book. It's very interesting, and be sure to check out the review down below. Okay, the next book I read is another lit RPG book that I did a review on, which you'll see down below in the description box if you're interested, and that is Second Chance by R. Brady Frost. This is also a lit RPG book, as I mentioned, but this one is a little bit different. It is not the same kind of idea of a teenager or young adult playing a virtual reality game and trying to claim fame through, you know, YouTube and those types of like streaming platforms, or just gain fame in order already within the gaming world. This is very different. It is a afterlife type of situation. So there's this corporation that has created this virtual reality that is very much lit RPG-ish, in the sense that you basically upload your consciousness to this game world or medieval fantasy virtual world after you die. So legit, like, you're like, I'm calling it quits, like it's over, like upload me. They upload you to the server, and you basically live out your afterlife in this virtual reality game simulation that is set in like a medieval world. But we basically meet our main character, and he is not interested in going to this afterlife. He is pretty much like standard, you know, standard saltine cracker. He's like, I'm going out the traditional way, whatever with this stuff. I'm going out like a normal person. But he ends up going to this afterlife, and you have to read the book to find out how. And in this afterlife, he basically is a total noob, and he has to learn his way around the mechanics of this game world, figure out what the story is, figure out what's really going on in this virtual reality that he's found himself in. And it was definitely a very interesting one because of the sole fact that this is an afterlife simulation. This is like his afterlife. It's not just a virtual game like it is for a lot of the other books I've read. There's much more heavier consequences to the fact that a lot of the main characters in this book are all people who have died and are like deceased in the real world, but have had their consciousness uploaded. I go through a much more thorough, in-depth review and my thoughts in total, but overall, really enjoyed it, really liked it, but be sure to check out the review for more thoughts on that. My last two books I read this month was Stardivers by Stephen Landry, and this was a sci-fi lit RPG, so spaceships, Star Wars, lit RPG. There you go, boom. Basically, we follow his main character. He is a pretty intense gamer, and he works for a company where they basically send people like him, our main character, on these dives to go find basically the remains of characters that were previously killed, and to collect the goodies that the body dropped, and then bring them back to the guild, the group of players that are in charge of players such as our main one. So that is pretty much his job in this role. Like, he literally like makes his like real life money by playing this role in the video game. But things start to go off the hinge when a quest falls into his lap and he goes on this kind of crazy adventure. Overall, I really enjoyed the world. I really enjoyed the idea of it. My main issues with this book, because I haven't done a full review on it yet, but I will be doing one, so I don't want to go too in depth because you guys can check it out later. But my main issues with it was that I thought that a lot of the constraints that our author Stephen put on the main character were kind of like thrown away near the end. Like, he like put all these constraints and limitations on our character, and then once the story needed it, he just like kind of took them off with like no like real reason for taking them off. For example, to make this clear, in order to like do part of the quest that he's given in the original part of the story, he has a level cap. Like, he needs to reach a certain level before he can complete this portion of the quest and finish it. And it's a really high level that he won't be able to get to easily. But near the end of the book, he just like gives him a whole bunch of levels. And that might be a slight spoiler. It is a slight spoiler, but it conveys to you my frustration in terms of what I was dealing with and where I got frustrated with the book. The main character has been playing this game for years, so a lot of the stuff that he just like knows and gets and just like talks about, we have to figure out by him talking around it for us to figure out what's exactly going on. Well, I totally get the whole like not starting from step one and explaining a video game all the way through and all of its components can be frustrating and can be slow down the story. It also made it like really hard to know everything that was going on all the time, especially when I initially started this book. But if you guys are into sci-fi lit RPG and are into like Star Wars lit RPG and have been looking for something that's like lit RPG-esque game lit but is not in a medieval world, this is probably going to be the series for you. I'll let you guys know as soon as I finish the second book, and I'll do a review on both of them. The next book I read was the third book in the Ascend Online series by Chmilenko. I did not like this book, did not like it. And I will be doing a full review on that later, but I did not like it, and I have a lot of issues with it. Basically, it's the third book, and it's really hard because I don't even know where to begin with this series, so I won't be diving too hard into it. But basically, we continue with the same story from the first book, where we have a group of characters who are playing this game, and they're all friends in real life, and they're basically found the settlement of NPCs, non-player characters, and they basically are working to build up the settlement and make it into like a full fostering city, where like it's going to be like a player city, and all the players who are playing this game can like come and like be based out of the city, and they are working to build it up and make it really like quite a nice place for everyone. Unfortunately, they keep having issues that develop. In this one in particular, their main issue is that there's this river underground that's basically this like river of power and energy, and it is leaking, and if it continues to leak, it's not going to be good for the area. So they are sent on a mission, and they need to basically solve the leaking river issue before it gets too extreme. While that's happening, they also have other players that are either their enemy or don't like what they're doing, who are trying to stop them along the way. So like that's the plot. I had a lot of issues with it. I thought it was just basically simply put way too long. Like Chmilenko wrote way too long, and it was just like way too many words for that plot. Like it was just like way too much. But I'll be doing a full review on it later on. Outside of that, I wanted to also let you guys know I'm about like a third of the way through Ready Player One by Ernest Cline, which I'm rereading in order to read the second one, and I am about 20% into The Queen of Sorrow by Sarah Beth Durst. Both are books that I'll be doing reviews on once I finish them, so there's that. Now in terms of what I'll be reading next month, because I just kind of want to wrap this all up into one, I'll be reading The Disappearance at Devil's Rock by Paul Tremblay. For those who don't know, I love Paul Tremblay. He's fantastic. I've read 2 of his books so far. This is a child kidnapping case, basically. A kid goes on a walk and he disappears into the woods and no one knows where he went. And I love Paul Tremblay. I don't really need to know what the book's about, and I'll read it, but I'll be sure to let you guys know what my thoughts are as soon as I finish it. The next one I'm picking up is The Library at Mount Char by Scott Hawkins. This is a really weird book. The description's really odd on the back. I've also heard people describe it as a fantasy book. I've heard people describe it as literary horror. I've heard people describe it as just a literary book. I don't know what it's about. I keep hearing different things. I think it's about a man who owns a library and has like foster kids, and they all like learn in the library. I don't know what this book's about. I've heard great things about it though, so I want to pick it up, and I'm hoping to this month. My next book I'm hoping to pick up this month is going to be The Sword of Shannara. This is the trilogy set, so it's all 3 books. This bad boy just came in today, and I'm so excited. And it is going to be The Sword of Shannara, The Elfstones of Shannara, and The Wish Song of Shannara. And it basically is going to cover those 3 generations. I don't want to get too in depth into each book because I don't know if I'm going to get through all of them, but the first book, Sword of Shannara, basically we meet our main character, Shay Omsford. Shay Omsford is basically just your standard guy, you know, he's a farmer, he lives his normal life, when he's basically called upon by a magical user, i.e. Gandalf, but not Gandalf because this is not Lord of the Rings. He's called on Gandalf to basically save the world from an eternal darkness. It is very standard Lord of the Rings vibes, especially the first trilogy. I've read this series before. This will be a reread for me, but I'm reading it because I'm going through all the Terry Brooks series this year, so I'll be doing a whole Terry Brooks dedicated video to walk you guys through it as we progress through the series, but I'll let you guys know what my thoughts are. That is another book I'm hoping to get through. Because this is going to be a crazy busy month for me in terms of grad school papers, that is all I'm promising to try and read this month. I'm going to still try and catch up on my last TBR, which meaning that I'm going to need to finish the 2 books I mentioned, and I'm going to try and read the second Ready Player One book. So we have a few books in the works. No pressure, people. Don't worry. We will be reading a lot of books probably this month, but it won't be as many as normal because of grad school papers. But with that all being said, Comment down below what books did you guys see that you guys have read or thought about reading or wanted to check out. Are there any on here that you guys like super loved? I really had very little complaints, I think. Pretty much like most books I read this month I really enjoyed. It was a really lucky month for me. Let me know what your guys' thoughts are down below. Also, don't forget, if you guys are not in the book giveaway, we passed 150 subscribers, which is super exciting. And that means that we're doing a book giveaway to commemorate such an event. And the details on how to get entered into the book giveaway will be in a video that I linked down below. It is I posted like 2 videos ago. But basically, we'll be doing that giveaway, I think, around Wednesday this week. So make sure you get your name in ASAP as soon as possible, and I cannot wait to see you guys in the next video. But with that, I think that's everything for today, and I'll see you guys later. Bye now.